Praise Lord, saints. This is Elder Adrian Heyman. I wanted to bring this up again regarding the signs of the Lord's coming, just because it's been in the news with a little bit of alarm, actually. And I think that sometimes I know that we shouldn't be so scared of every single thing that happens, but I want us to be able to understand what the signs are, and to understand that we are so close to the Lord's coming. Now, maybe you don't believe it. Maybe you feel, well, Elder Heyman, you're just trying to scare people. That's not the key. I'm not trying to scare people, but I'm trying for people to see that the Lord, His word is going to come true. His word will come to pass. And for those who don't think that, you have a rude awakening. We have to make sure that, again, I'm not speaking as an alarmist. I'm speaking as someone who wants us to know that the Lord means what He says, and says exactly what He means. Of course, you've heard in the news how essentially this particular Hantavirus, it came from South Africa, how people on this cruise ship, they contracted it, and how I think at least 3 people have died from that. Others are being treated now. But it lets you know that the things that, be honest, the things that should probably alarm us the most is not the big things, not the nuclear weapons, not the threat of annihilation by that particular aspect, but it's the small things, the things that don't even really live, but they wreak havoc in our system. And those are the viruses. You think it's not, yes, there are bacteria that can attack your body and really do a number on it. Like, for instance, flesh-eating, brain-eating amoebas and bacteria and so on. Those subject people to a most horrible death. But it's the viruses that essentially that we have been trying so hard to stay ahead of. But what happens if we should meet a strain of virus that is both extremely infectious and also extremely fatal? That will put us in a horrendous bind as we try to race for the cure. Millions of people are falling from right and left. And it's funny because we had this scare several years ago of COVID-19. And because somebody died from it. In fact, at least 1 million or so people died in 1 year from the COVID virus. And we were raised and we were up in arms about that. An entire economy was shut down in order to keep it from spreading any further than what it already had. For most people, it was a bit worse than a bad cold. It sometimes even gave you a loss of sense of smell or taste. And there are some people that actually had lasting symptoms because of it. But it didn't kill you. But because of the danger of someone dying from it, you shut the whole economy down. not just in the United States, but all around the world. People didn't go to movies, they didn't go to restaurants, they didn't go to any place where you could be out in the open. And I remember those days. I remember trying to get my wife something to eat and seeing how empty everything was. The streets were empty. It was mind-boggling just how one virus could cause an entire economy to almost collapse. That was very interesting, actually. But to be honest, what unsettles me more than anything else is something on the scale of fatality, something like Ebola. And that's come in the news. How right now in Uganda and the Republic of the Congo, there have been cases and hundreds of fatalities. Hundreds because that's what they've seen. They don't know really how many people have it because they've just started to be able to count these people. And because they don't have the resources to be able to really keep track of it, then we really don't know how many people, have, what do you call it? How many people actually have the disease itself, or maybe mimicking something else until the full-blown portion of Ebola pops up. And again, let you know that Ebola is a very, very horrendous disease that causes your blood vessels to break down and to hemorrhage everywhere. And so you bleed from your mouth, you bleed from your nose, you bleed from every orifice, and you also bleed through your skin. And I'm assuming that essentially that you don't feel very good as all this is going on because your body is breaking down. Some people say it's almost like turning your insides into liquid, which is a pretty horrible way of understanding what that is all about. But the reason why I bring it up again is because I recently was reading or going through Revelation, as we're going through it right now, actually. And I read about the fourth seal and about what that entails. It entails people being killed from four sources, main sources, through violence, through lack of food, through pestilence, which is essentially epidemics and pandemics, as well as being killed or gored or whatever by wild animals, or even animals that are not necessarily wild, but like feral dogs. They run in packs, and they want something to eat. They want things to take. They want to be able to get prey. It can happen. Just to let you know from that particular fact, I remember you've had at least one dog and one cat that have been attacked and eaten by coyotes. Where I am, coyotes do come down from the hills and they do roam the streets. You may seem like everything that we see here is houses, and that's true. But I'm also staying near a place where it gets hilly. And I can see how the coyotes come from the hills, come through blocks and blocks, and they're wandering through miles of city blocks just try to find something to eat. And I've seen a few. So it's not as if this is fantasy. I've actually seen coyotes in my area. And as I said, I've had pets that have died from that. But I've heard stories of them trying to carry away babies or toddlers because they're that bold right now. Think about if humanity ends up destroying itself or is on the verge of doing that, and there's a lot of violence and a lot of people that are dying from famine, then how many of these animals will come down from wherever they are and try to find some food? But these things essentially are they can happen very easily. But what I'm really talking about right now are the situations where we're dealing with disease and how we have actually lost control of tracking these diseases. And part of it is because, diseases begin to mutate, and they do that very regularly. This is why you have to get vaccines every year for the flu, because the flu mutates. It changes. So what was good last year is not good this year. You can't say, well, I received the vaccine 5 years ago, it should still work. That doesn't work that way. The viruses mutate. And you have to be able to track how they're going to mutate in order for you to be able to be effective against either the inception or the spread of that particular disease. But we have lost track of that. Why? How have we lost track of this? We've lost track because we stopped funding in various countries. In Uganda and the Congo, we've stopped giving money. We've stopped giving money. We think that, well, why are we giving money when it should be for us? And I understand why people are saying that. But if we really are concerned about the health of our country, then shouldn't we look at what's happening outside our country and then making sure that what takes place there doesn't come over here? How do you do that? By treating what's over there. But we seem to have lost that. And the problem is, once we lose that capability, then all you need is one person, just one, who slips through. Maybe they go into another country, Canada, Mexico, whatever it happens to be. And in some way, either they or another person who they've infected ends up coming into the United States. And everyone here there's no antibodies here. There is no vaccine here. So it's like coming into virgin forest. Everything is pure. Everything is essentially the way that as if not sullied by human existence. They say, oh, this is great. We can attack all these various victims here. And so because of that, we're in a position whereas the virus just spreads like wildfire. Now, it just so happens that Ebola is not necessarily highly contagious, but essentially it can still spread. It's not like, for instance, we cough and someone can get it. But if you touch their blood, if you touch their fluids, anything that comes from their body, whatever fluid happens to be, whether it's urine, whether it's saliva, whether it's sweat, Ebola viruses are in those particular things. We touch it, we put our hands on something else, gets into something of our skin, may go into our hair follicles. We don't know. But we end up in a position whereas we become then hosts ourselves as well as them attacking us. But what's going to happen in Revelation? You can see it starting to take place today. I'm not saying that this Ebola virus is going to spread all over the world. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's a certainty, but it is a possibility. And there's also a possibility that there are other viruses out there that we haven't encountered on before. It may not come from Africa. It may come from Southeast Asia. It may come from the mountains of Afghanistan. It may come from the tundra of Russia. It may come from Australia. It may even come from the mountains of the United States. We just don't know. You don't know how many, let's say, field mice may have diseases. And these field mice go all over the place. They're here in our cities. And with their droppings, and they dry and they get blown in the wind, people breathe that into their systems and boom, they got it. We just don't know. And that, to me, that's probably the most frightening thing of all. We know there's going to be some type of pandemic, maybe a series of them. But we don't know just what they are, and how they're going to get into our systems, how they're going to spread. We don't know this. But we do understand that we have to be careful. Does not mean that we don't go on cruise ships. Doesn't mean we don't go on vacations, we don't go places where it's public. But it does mean that what God says is true. And it's going to be fulfilled. And the things that have been said before that maybe would have thought that this could never happen. Be careful, saints. It can happen. And the problem is, it will happen. So these are the signs. And we need not just to protect ourselves from the viruses and the bacteria and the fungi and anything else that infects us, but we have to protect ourselves. But we have to also watch and pray and understand that we must see the signs of the times and not be like the Pharisees and ignore them to our detriment. May God bless you. May He keep you. Stay safe, saints. Stay clean, saints. Not just physically, but morally as well. Not saying this to scare you, but saying this to give you a heads up, so we're not surprised or waylaid by what happens. May the Lord bless you. May He keep you. Love you all. Take care in Jesus' name.